Let me ask you a strange question. Would you rather be a fully trained soldier, living in a peaceful garden, or a humble gardener, dropped into the middle of a battlefield? It sounds odd at first, but think about it. What's the use of being perfectly prepared for the wrong environment? And what happens when you're underprepared yet thrown into chaos? This question perfectly frames a timeless debate, one that's more relevant than ever. Are specialists better suited for today's world, or are generalists the real winners? Let's break that down. On one side, you have the specialists, people who dedicate years, sometimes decades, to mastering a single skill or field. They know the ins and outs, the technical details, the exceptions to the rule. They are deep, focused, and precise. On the other side, you have the generalists, people who know a little about a lot, and often more than a little. They may not go as deep in one area, but they can connect dots across many. They think in systems. They manage teams. They adapt and move quickly, so which is better? The answer used to be simple. Specialists were the safe bet. In a slower, more predictable world, the world of assembly lines, corporate ladders, and rigid structures, being an expert in one thing made sense. It brought status, security, a well-defined career path. But today, that world is gone. We live in an age of rapid change, where technology disrupts entire industries overnight, and information multiplies faster than we can process it. In this new reality, being deeply trained in one thing isn't always enough. In fact, according to the World Economic Forum, the top 10 skills needed by 2027 are mostly not technical. They're broad, flexible, human, things like critical thinking, creativity, adaptability, emotional intelligence, and active learning. Notice a trend. None of these are about doing one thing extremely well. They're about understanding complexity, connecting ideas, and solving unfamiliar problems. That's the generalist's game. But let's be clear, being a specialist isn't a bad thing, not at all. The problem is relying only on specialization in a world that no longer rewards tunnel vision. Let's look at some data. A McKinsey study estimated that up to 45% of tasks currently done by humans could already be automated using existing technology. Entire professions are disappearing or transforming. Translation, customer service, technical writing, even coding, are being absorbed by tools like AI automation systems and low-code platforms. In 2023, the launch of tools like ChatGPT and Midjourney shook the foundations of many creative and analytical industries. Writers, designers, video editors, illustrators all began asking the same question: how do I stay relevant when machines can now do what I do, faster and cheaper? And here's the hard truth. Being really good at just one thing is no longer a shield. It's like being the best sword fighter in a world that's gone digital. This brings us to a deeper insight. Rigidity is a disadvantage in a flexible world. Here's where philosophy helps us understand. Heraclitus, the Greek philosopher, famously said, "Everything flows. Nothing is permanent. The only constant is change." Think of the world as a river. The specialist digs a deep well in one spot, but the river keeps moving. The generalist learns to swim. They adapt, move with the current, and survive wherever the flow takes them. Put another way, specialists go deep. Generalists stay mobile, and in a fast-changing world, mobility wins now. Some might say this is an exaggeration, that we're underestimating the value of expertise. But let's consider some examples. If you're an expert in combustion engines, what happens when the world shifts to electric vehicles? If you're a master of pen and paper drafting, how do you compete in a world of AutoCAD, BIM, and 3D modeling? Being highly trained in a single method is powerful until the method becomes outdated. Then you're stuck. That's where generalists come in. They're the ones who don't just know things, they know how to learn. They can talk to the designer, the developer, the marketer, the strategist, and understand them all. They're the bridge between disciplines, the glue that holds complex teams together. They're not the gears in the machine. They're the architect who designed the machine. And here's what's even more interesting. The generalist isn't a new concept. In fact, they were the rule before specialization took over. Think of Leonardo da Vinci, a painter, an engineer, an anatomist, a visionary, a scientist, or Benjamin Franklin, diplomat, writer, inventor, philosopher, or Avicenna, a physician, mathematician, and metaphysicist in the Islamic Golden Age. These people were polymaths. They didn't separate art from science, or theory from practice. They saw the world as an interconnected system, and that mindset is what we desperately need today. Because what we're living through right now isn't just a tech boom, it's a digital renaissance. And in this new renaissance, the ones who thrive aren't the narrow experts, but the connectors, the integrators, the curious minds who see the big picture. That brings us to the next big question. If generalists are so crucial, how exactly do they win? What makes them so different? And can anyone become one, even if they've been trained as a specialist all their life? To find out, we'll need to dive into the mindset, habits, and real-world strategies that set generalists apart. And that's what we'll explore next. Asterisk. The world is more connected than ever, and that changes everything. For most of us, growing up meant answering one question over and over again. What do you want to be when you grow up? But baked into that question was a trap. The idea that you can only be one thing. What if you're not meant to be just one thing? What if your strength lies in being many? That's the core of what it means to be a generalist. Not someone who's scattered or shallow, but someone who sees the world like a chessboard and knows how to move every piece. Someone who learns fast, connects ideas, understands people, and leads through integration. Someone who takes information and turns it into strategy. And today, that skill set has never been more valuable. David Epstein, in his best-selling book Range, Why Generalists Triumph in a Specialized World, argues exactly that. He shows that in uncertain, fast-changing environments, generalists have a serious advantage. Why? Because they can transfer knowledge across domains. They're comfortable being uncomfortable. They don't need perfect information to make decisions. They can act with what they have. They think in systems, not silos. Epstein shares fascinating data. One study found that Nobel Prize winners are far more likely to have hobbies outside their primary field, music, painting, writing, than other scientists. Creativity, it turns out, doesn't just come from depth. It comes from cross-pollination, from letting unrelated ideas collide. And it's not just theory. A 2022 Harvard Business Review study showed that companies promoting mixed teams where different disciplines overlap were 22% more successful at launching innovations. A LinkedIn report from 2023 backed this up. Professionals with hybrid skills, a mix of technical know-how and soft skills, were 37% more likely to reach leadership roles within 3 years. Why? Because leaders don't just execute, they connect, they motivate, they adapt. And that's exactly what generalists are built to do. But let's not romanticize this. Being a generalist isn't easy. It takes discipline to stay curious, and humility to admit what you don't know. It takes the patience to learn enough about multiple areas, not to master them, but to see how they fit together. Generalists aren't trying to do everything, they're trying to understand enough of everything to make things work. Think of it like an orchestra. The violinist, that's the specialist. The percussionist, the cellist, all experts in their instrument. But the conductor, that's the generalist. They don't play the instruments better than the musicians. They guide them all toward harmony. And in a world growing more complex by the day, we need more conductors. Because the real revolution we're living through isn't just digital, it's philosophical. It's about how we think and who gets to lead the way forward. Look at someone like Elon Musk. He started in software, then he built an electric car company, then a rocket company, then a brain-computer interface company, and now AI. Is he the best engineer? No, but he knows enough about each domain to lead the best people. He doesn't specialize, he integrates. Or take Steve Jobs. He wasn't the best coder, designer, or marketer, but he had the vision to combine all three, to create a product that was more than just functional. It was beautiful, intuitive, emotional. He didn't just build devices, he built experiences. That's what a generalist does. Even in the creator economy, you'll find this pattern. Mr. Beast, one of the most successful content creators in the world, didn't succeed by being good at just one thing. He studied psychology, thumbnails, video, pacing, data, analytics, story structure, team building, and more. He became a master at orchestrating ideas, people, and systems, not because he was the best at each one, but because he knew how they all worked together. This is the secret of generalists. They don't outcompete specialists, they orchestrate them. At this point, you might be wondering, if generalists are so valuable, why isn't everyone one already? Simple, the system isn't built for it. From school to college to the corporate world, we've been taught to specialize, to narrow down, to pick a lane and stay there. Tests reward memorization, jobs reward depth, certifications reward repetition. But the world doesn't work like that anymore. Problems today are messy. They don't come with a clear label. They require insights from psychology, design, tech, finance, storytelling all at once. And when the specialist hits a wall, the generalist walks around it. A recent article from MIT Technology Review found that most breakthrough innovations come not from within a single field, but from the intersection of fields, from people who think between not within disciplines. Here's where we circle back to philosophy. Nietzsche spoke of the free spirit, the mind that isn't bound to any one truth or dogma, but roams freely, creating its own meaning. That's the generalist mindset. Plato believed in the harmony of the soul, balancing reason, spirit, and desire. In modern terms, that's a person who develops logic, creativity, and emotional intelligence. The generalist is that whole-brain thinker. They don't just know things, they see the connections between them. They don't just solve problems, they reframe them. So yes, specialists are crucial. They build the parts, they keep the engine running. But generalists are the architects, the ones who design the system, spot the opportunities, and drive the change. And in a world of uncertainty, those are the people who rise. Which brings us to a turning point. You understand why generalists matter. You've seen how they think, what they bring to the table, and why they're so valuable in today's world. But the question now is, how do you become one? If you're deeply specialized, can you still make the leap? If you feel like you know a little about everything but haven't mastered anything, how do you level up? That's what we'll explore next. We'll look at the practical tools, mindset shifts, and daily habits that turn a jack of all trades into a strategic generalist, one who's not just versatile but undeniably valuable. Let's dive in. Being a generalist isn't just about knowing a lot of things. It's about knowing what to learn, when to learn it, and how to apply it. It's about thinking like a strategist, acting like a builder, and leading like a conductor. And contrary to what you may have heard, you don't have to choose between depth and breadth. In fact, the best generalists are those who go deep in one area, and then wide in many others. That's what experts call the T-shaped skill set. Picture the letter T. The vertical bar, that's your depth, the thing you've mastered. The horizontal bar, that's your range, the fields you understand just well enough to collaborate, create, and lead. This is the ideal formula for the modern world. Deep in one, dangerous in many. So how do you get there? Let's break it down. There are 4 pillars that will help you evolve from randomly skilled to highly strategic generalist. 1. Build social skills. Like they're technical skills, it doesn't matter how talented you are. If you can't explain, connect, inspire, or negotiate, you'll struggle to scale your impact. In fact, Forbes reported that in 2024, 92% of the highest paid executives ranked communication, emotional intelligence, and collaboration as more critical than technical expertise. Why? Because people run businesses, people drive change, and people follow those who know how to lead with clarity and empathy. You don't need to be the loudest voice in the room, but you do need to be the one who listens well, speaks clearly, and adapts fast. Whether you're pitching an idea, managing a team, or navigating conflict, your soft skills are what turn knowledge into influence. 2. Learn just enough to speak the language. No, you don't need to become a full-stack developer, but you should understand the basics of how software is built. You don't have to be a certified accountant, but you need to read a profit and loss statement without panicking. You don't need to be a marketing genius, but you do need to know why storytelling matters, how funnels work, and what data to look at. This is called functional fluency. You're not the technician, but you're the translator, the coordinator, the one who brings it all together. Philosopher Umberto Eco once said, "We don't need to memorize everything. We need to know how to find what we need, and how to ask the right questions." In practice, that means learning just enough to collaborate with experts without getting lost. It's not about doing their job, it's about understanding it well, enough to lead them. 3. Follow your curiosity like it's a compass. Curiosity isn't a luxury, it's your edge. It's what keeps your brain elastic, your ideas fresh, your network growing. Generalists don't need a clear roadmap, they build it as they go. They explore new skills, read outside their field, and test ideas just to see what happens. They don't wait for permission, they pursue whatever sparks something inside them, and that spark often leads to the next big insight. Astronomer Carl Sagan said it beautifully, "We are made of star stuff, but we are driven by curiosity." Curiosity leads you across disciplines. It fuels creativity, and it helps you stand out in a world that's full of people repeating what they already know. If you want to grow fast, stay curious. If you want to become irreplaceable, stay hungry to learn. 4. Adapt like your career depends on it, because it does. Let's be honest. The biggest risk today isn't being replaced by someone smarter, it's being replaced by someone more adaptable. History is full of industry giants who failed to evolve. Kodak, which ignored digital photography, Blockbuster, which laughed at Netflix, BlackBerry, which dismissed the touchscreen. They weren't lacking talent, they were lacking vision, and the humility to change. The same applies to individuals, refusing to learn new tools, clinging to old methods, avoiding uncomfortable ideas. These are slow-motion ways of becoming obsolete. The generalist doesn't fear change, they chase it. They use it as fuel. Adaptability doesn't mean chasing every new trend. It means being aware, prepared, and willing to shift gears when it matters. In short, adapt or get left behind. Now that you know the pillars, let's answer the big question. Is it worth becoming a generalist? Absolutely, but not because generalists are better, because they're built for the world we actually live in. A world where no job stays the same, where no path is guaranteed, and where the ability to connect, learn, and lead is more valuable than ever. If you want to survive, you might still make it as a specialist. But if you want to lead, create, and thrive, you need more. You need range. You need strategy. You need the mindset of a generalist. Because when everyone else is stuck in their own lane, you'll be the one building the highway. One final thought: philosopher Seneca once said, "It's not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it." So the question isn't whether you have time to learn more, it's whether you'll use your time to build something that truly matters. Don't be afraid to grow wide. Don't be afraid to explore. Master something, then learn everything else you need to bring it to life. Be a jack of all trades, but also be a master of at least one, because in the end, the world will always need specialists. But the ones who lead it forward will be the generalists who connect it all together.